Okay. There
what do you know about the book of James?
I don't. None. I know that it is a book of the Bible.
Yeah, so if you
it's way in the back, close to Revelation. So
if you grew up mainline, if your religious tradition history is in one of the mainline denominations, there's a very good chance you've never read anything for the Book of James.
There we go. I am generationally Presbyterian. I know that the name of the Book of James has come up, but
yeah,
and I'll probably be like, oh yeah, no, I know that one, but
yeah, it's very controversial. So Martin Luther even went to the standpoint of when he translated the Bible from Latin into German, writing the German language in the process, creating the German language in the process. He took the Book of James out of the Bible.
Oh. It's like, I don't like that one.
Yeah. He's like, it's done. He said it confused people because it made them think. All of the controversy is around the idea of faith versus works. Like, what saves you? And Luther argued that James told people that their works would be their salvation.
Well, I'm looking at the little headers in my particular translation, and it's like, our cravings versus God's gifts.
Yeah.
Don't show favoritism. Taming the tongue. Yes. I already don't like this book.
Yeah. Martin Luther thought it created this idea that what you did was what saved you. That's not what James is saying. That's a overreaction, I think. However, if you grew up in, I don't know, a Nazarene household, Mennonite household, something like that, James would have been the main book. If you ask my husband, the one book of the Bible he's read all the way through, James is, if he sits down and opens the Bible, he opens it to James.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it definitely depends on what faith tradition you have lived in. James is what we would call a practical theologian.
Okay.
So we have this idea of there's different types. We always think of people who study the Bible all do the same thing, right?
Right.
Practical theologians are the ones that help you translate. This is the theory. Right. This is what the ideas of what we think. Now, what does it actually mean for your life?
Yeah.
And how you practically live day to day. So James is not writing from a place of judgment or anything like that. What he's saying is these are the things you need to think about as you're trying to live a Christian life.
So really, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So if you read it with a lens of, it's not a rule book. It's a litmus test, perhaps.
Yeah. One of the commentators I read described it as the only book in the New Testament that's from the wisdom tradition.
Huh. Okay.
So if you think about the wisdom tradition, books like Psalms or Ecclesiastes or Lamentations, the Song of Solomon, those books from the Old Testament that are in the wisdom tradition, Proverbs.
Right.
Their whole purpose is to name and claim what human reality actually is and to turn that back over to God. So it's practical. They're practical advice, right?
Right. Okay.
So when you read Proverbs, you're looking at things like, don't do this.
Right.
Do this.
Right.
And it's not from a place of you're going to hell if you don't do these things.
Right.
It's from a place of this is how a faithful person lives.
Right.
So that's sort of the attitude we want to have when we come to James.
And that makes a lot of sense from the standpoint of, it's only made sense to me as a full-grown adult that, when you were acting out, it's the two different ways to approach the concept of salvation, right? Mm-hmm. Acting out of fear versus acting out of gratitude. And so if you read James from a place of gratitude, then perhaps you're able to see that this is not a book of rules and regulations and focusing on what you do matters. It is what you do matters because it is an outcropping of your belief, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's, in June and July, we're going to be looking at what it means to appreciate things. What are qualities and characteristics of people that as Christians we should appreciate.
Got it.
And we should be grateful for.
Right.
And we should lift up as these are the types of things that a good Christian person strives to be.
Right.
Or to attain.
Okay.
And so there's so it's 8 weeks of different characteristics that Paul, so I didn't make them up, Paul lists them in Philippians. He said these are the things that we should learn to appreciate in one another. And so there's 8 characteristics that Paul says mark a good authentic Christian witness in the world.
Gotcha.
So that's sort of what we're talking about.
All right.
So all of that background into James chapter 3. So if you'll read the first three verses.
Got it. Oh, this is the taming the tongue one.
Yeah.
My brothers and sisters, not many of you should become teachers, because we know that we teachers will be judged more strictly. We all make mistakes often, but those who don't make mistakes with their words have reached full maturity. Like a brindled horse, they can control themselves entirely. When we brindle horses and put bits in their mouths to lead them wherever we want, we can control their whole bodies.
Yeah.
Huh. Okay. I can get behind that. So this it smacks of my dear, thoughtful, very well, I don't even know what to call him. My husband, who is incredibly good at managing his words and understanding and recognizing the power or the damage that words can do, and then evaluating how important it is to either hold that power or do that damage. Mm-hmm. And so I can see what this is saying, it's not what I want to do. I don't want to weigh my words, and anyway.
No, that's the first bit of this I think is really important to notice that not many should become teachers or leaders or pastors is really the idea he's writing about, because we know that leaders will be judged more strictly. Mm-hmm. And I think we need to acknowledge that. I think as people in position of leadership, we want to think of ourselves as just like everybody else, right?
Right.
I'm just I'm a normal Joe. I'm a normal person. I want to sit in the pews with you and hang out and have coffee and things like that. But I do think it's important to acknowledge that people are in a position of leaders who can affect how other people see the world, have an extra dose of responsibility.
Yes, you are held to a different standard. And we have that expectation across the board, right? So recognizing that should be something that anyone in a leadership role is held to is an important,
So what's the implication you think of that for life, how we think about positions of leadership and when we're in them?
So it's really funny. I think I have come to realize how important the healthy boundaries trainings, that's one of the things that our presbytery requires of us in any kind of programmatic or ordained leadership role. And the idea of the power dynamic that we forget about all the time. Again, it is, you don't ask for it. You don't actively take it. It is just there. It is given to you. When you are in a position of leadership, there is a power dynamic at play. You hold more power. It doesn't matter if you want it, you have it, right? Yeah. And so the reality of that comes into play, I think, about you have to be ready to hold that and stay aware of it and work within that structure. You don't get to, I think about, I don't get to decide whether or not I hold that power in certain spaces or certain rooms. That is not up for me to decide. Yeah. That is just a reality. So this being judged more strictly, being held accountable more highly because of the sheer fact that I said yes, I signed on the dotted line of a contract that put me in a leadership position, that I have to, if I am worth anything at all, recognize that power dynamic in a room. Yeah. It is my responsibility. It is no one else's to hold that line.
Yeah, I think...
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, maybe...
100%. No, I think that's something that's really easy for people who are in a position of leadership to forget, that extra level of responsibility.
Yeah.
That we have to... that people are paying attention. Mm-hmm. I think some of what for me happens is I forget that people are actually listening to what I'm saying.
Right.
I mean, it's not so much in the sermon context, though sometimes, that happens. But, just like conversations and, casual remarks at meetings and, things passing by in the grocery store and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That what you say matters has extra bits of weight because people have given you the gift of trusting your authority and your leadership and that you've been called in this position. And so I think it's really important that James starts off this conversation this way with saying it sort of trickles down.
Right.
There's a lot of argument about trickle down and whether that actually works or not, but I do think you set the tone. I think like parents set the tone of how their children speak in the world and talk to each other in the world, and coaches set the tone for how their teams are going to play and react. And we've only won like 3 baseball games this season because we've had some big developmental things that are, developmental growth. We've gotten so much, like all of the games have been the last couple of weeks of the season, which is what you want to have, you'd like to win everything, but really ideally, if you're you want to see growth. And so the fact that we're, winning games at the end of the season is great, but I do, like, after the first time that we won, I turned and looked at everybody and said, be good winners. Remember what it feels like to lose. Be a good winner. Because they all, they're 8-year-olds, 7 and 8-year-olds, and so they all jumped up and started screaming and yelling and being all excited, and I, calmed them down and reset the tone. Which was, it feels great to win. And there's times to celebrate, but let's not do it in a way that makes the other team feel bad or worse. And that, I think, was an important tone. Absolutely. For us to set moving forward, and I hope that that's something that the kids remember as they get older and things become more serious. So that's all to say is, when we speak, anytime we have a position where people are listening and paying attention, we have responsibility for the ways that we're communicating with one another.
It's really, I was sitting here looking at this, and I think I struggle with the imagery. So we all make mistakes often, yes, but those who don't make mistakes with their words have reached full maturity. Like a brindled horse, they can control themselves entirely. A brindled horse doesn't control itself. I think, because I look at the next, when we brindle horses and put bits in their mouths to lead them wherever we want, we can control their whole bodies. I feel like there's a little tension there for me. I don't know. And maybe it's just a bad image. Sorry, James, maybe I just don't like the imagery but a brindled horse is not controlling itself. A brindled horse is being controlled. And to me, the goal here is saying you are in control of yourself. And when you reach full maturity, you are fully in control of how you speak and how you approach the dynamic in the room. I don't know. Maybe that has nothing to do with anything, but here I am, geeking out. My literary, red flag came up. I'm like, wait, no, I don't like that.
I don't know. It's not a fan. I think that's an interesting idea. My dog, when we get ready to go for a walk, I'll put her harness on and I'll put her leash on, and she picks up the leash and holds it in her mouth as if she's going to walk herself.
Right. I am in control. Kind of.
Yep. You are not. I admire people who can walk their dogs not on a leash, because my dog is not.
Nope, we're not there.
Either I don't do the amount of work that's required to train them, or I don't pick the right dogs. I'm never sure. But she totally thinks she's in control of this walk. Because she's got the leash in her mouth. And so sometimes I just let her carry the leash, and I hold another leash. Yep. She feels like in control. I do think that's an interesting idea of like a horse can't control its own direction.
Like a brindled, I keep calling it brindled. Bridled. I've been using the wrong word. Brindle is a color. Bridle is a thing. There we go, folks. This is what happens when you try to read tiny print and you're tired. A bridled horse. Now you know what I'm talking about. Bridled.
Horse.
When we bridle horses and put bits in their mouths to lead them wherever we want, we can control their whole bodies. I don't know.
I like the imagery, though, of the idea that our mouths control the rest of us.
Yes.
I think is the idea he's going for here. That I get that you don't like the idea of somebody else. It is a little confusing with the idea of.
I'm like, that could be taken out of context and used horribly. But.
Yeah, I get the idea of
But it is an appropriate image.
You should be able to control yourself, and you won't need a bridle at all. But I do like the idea that our mouths are what controls everything else in our lives. I don't like that idea because it's the most hard, difficult thing for me. But I think it's really true. I think
and terribly important.
Yeah. Okay. Consider ships. They are so large that strong winds are needed to drive them, but pilots direct their ships wherever they want with a little rudder. In the same way, even though the tongue is a small part of the body, it boasts wildly.
So now I can get behind. The imagery is starting to fall into place. It's the little thing that makes a huge difference. Yeah. So got it now. Okay.
Think about this. A small flame can set a whole forest on fire. The tongue is a small flame of fire, a world of evil at work in us. It contaminates our entire lives. Because of it, the circle of life is set on fire. The tongue itself is set on fire by the flames of hell.
Well.
Wow.
He's clearly been in some water cooler talk. It's not gone well.
Yeah, James has feelings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's not wrong.
He's not wrong. I mean, again, the damage that words can do. And the power that words have. I think the idea of the tongue itself being set on fire by the flames of hell, like
right.
When we allow ourselves to get out of control, when we allow ourselves to get to this place of anger or anxiety or fear or fatigue, where we are no longer in control of our mouths and what we're saying, that is when sin gets its little hands in us and causes us to behave in ways that we don't, that cause damage.
Yep. Absolutely.
And, I mean, it's absolutely a one-to-one for me in my head of like fights don't start with people punching each other.
Right. No, they always start with words. Yeah. And there's like, all of the cliches. There's a reason why the sticks and stones can break my bones, but words will never hurt me. There's a reason why we make up these rhymes, because it's not actually true. Like, there was an object lesson that made its way around in children's sermons all the time. And I don't know, maybe it's still happening, but the whole idea of like showing kids a tube of toothpaste and you squirt the toothpaste out onto a plate and you're like, okay, now put it back. And they can't. And then it's like, this is like your words. Once your words come out of your mouth, you cannot put them back. And I think we've always known how powerful our words are. We just don't want to admit it enough to necessarily control them, because control takes a lot of work.
It does. A children's lesson I used to use was a balloon. You blew up a big balloon and drew a face on it, and you talk about your friend, the balloon guy, right? You name whatever, Nelson, the name of the balloon, and then you slowly let out air over time as you say bad things about Nelson. Well, Nelson's kind of lazy, and like Nelson's, and you just would say bad things about him. Eventually, the balloon deflates.
Yeah,
and it was sort of the same idea of. Yeah, no, I remember your glue was not a thing.
Right.
People's words stick forever in our hearts. They shape how we see ourselves and how we act and behave. And I don't know, I would love to see, I'm sure somebody somewhere has done a study of how childhood, like, words change, how labels we get as children change our actual outcomes as adults. But I really wonder, like, when kids get labeled in kindergarten as the kid who can't sit still, or whatever.
Yes. There's a lot of educational research around. I think the pipeline to prison movement that was really focused on standardized testing and when it began and how that kind of, but it's in the education world, from what I remember, is it was very racially motivated. That you would see these little black boys who got tracked from kindergarten, and then all of a sudden, like, it was very hard by the time you got into high school to get into an AP class because you had been kind of tracked as that kid from the very beginning. So yeah, it makes all the difference in the world. What we assume and then what we say, because guess what? I have noticed time and time again, and I guess this is again with the leader thing, kids will live up to the expectations you set for them. Yeah. Will they not? And so if you set an expectation that you're going to be a bad kid because of the way you walked in my door, or because of the way you dressed today, or because of the way you look, I knew somebody who looked like you once and they weren't any good. Well, I've just given you permission by my words or by my assumptions that then turned into words. I just gave you an expectation to live up to. So why wouldn't you? I don't know.
Yeah. Somebody opened my eyes a little bit to this concept a few years ago as well, about the idea of seeing people who look like you do things that you didn't think was possible, and how powerful that was. Yeah. My mother grew up in rural West Virginia in the 50s and 60s, and went to college and wanted to major in religion but didn't, because she said she had never seen a female pastor. She didn't know that was a thing. Now, women had been ordained already at this point.
Right.
Women have been getting ordained in the Presbyterian Church since the 50s. So
right.
they existed in the world, but she was never exposed to that.
Yep.
That was never what she saw. Everybody she saw on the TV was a tall white man preacher. That's just the reality of what it was.
Right.
And it wasn't until much later in life, when she became friends with some women who were pastors, and she started to see that was a possibility for her. And she went to seminary late in life and was an excellent pastor, and should have started out in the beginning being a pastor, right? But because she didn't have that ability to see that it was possible, it really limited what she could do. And so I think it's important to remember how much the narrative around us defines what we think is possible.
Yep. Well, and I think about, we had this conversation in Pub Theology early on about how, going back to kind of the tongue and the words and all of that, and how much it does shape everything about your lens for the world, and talking about how many news sources you use in order to get your news, and how impactful, like, a singular source for news will absolutely send you on a trajectory that is, it was something about, we were talking, I'm all over the place here, but it was about these two women who had a conversation about the exact same political event.
I remember that, yeah.
And they had heard about it from two different news sources, but that was the only information they had received. And they were shocked when they started talking to one another and recognized that they were talking about the same thing.
Yeah, I remember it was one of the shootings in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Because somebody wrote an article about that happening. I remember that conversation. And that's what they said was, my friend had heard from one news source this version of events. And I had heard from a different news source this version of events.
Right.
And we realized when we were talking, neither one of us shared any of the same information.
Right.
And so it completely changed how we saw the events that were happening.
Right.
And I think that's important to acknowledge that truth is not subjective.
Right.
But it can be shaded or filtered or changed. And so often there's a truth that's there in the real world that exists, but we can't see it.
Right.
Because we're looking at it from our own angle or point of view.
Yep.
And it's often in conversation with one another or with people who are different than us that we discover the truth.
Right.
And the more siloed we are in the information we receive and the conversations that we have and then the stories that we hear, the less likely we are to be able to recognize objective truth. And I think that goes for every human.
Absolutely everyone.
Yeah.
Well, and I think about, James talking about leaders, and I think about how every single person who is in any leadership capacity, if we could all stop for a second and say, yeah, guess what? I walk in the room with an agenda. I don't do it on purpose necessarily. It is just, that is a given piece of my makeup. There is some type of agenda that I am always entering the room with.
Yeah.
If I don't acknowledge that and recognize that, then I have even more capacity to do damage in that space, in my leadership capacity. I mean, it's, that's where I go back to my husband, who stays quiet way more than I would ever want him to. But I think it's in part because of this very thing, is that when you recognize how much your words matter and you are respectful of that reality, you use them more carefully. Yeah. Right?
I think, too, I want to say that sometimes the mistake we make in controlling our tongues is not using it often enough. So often, there are stories going on in people's heads, and things that we think and feel and opinions that we have that we either don't have the words to express or to share, or that we don't think we should express or share them.
Right.
Because we don't think they have value, or because we were taught not to upset the apple cart, not to make people upset. We don't know how to have these difficult conversations. We don't know how to hold tension. And so we just don't say anything at all.
Right.
And I think that's so much it's the same but different.
Yeah.
Same but different.
No, but yeah, you're right. You can fall on either side of that and do damage.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's either that we don't want to talk about it at all, or we want to yell about it. And so this is really, the taming of the tongue can be both and, right? It's taming it to be able to speak to the things that you feel strongly about, but not in a way that is diminishing to another. Yeah. Right?
I think having control over controlling your speech does not mean not using it. It means being thoughtful about the impact of the words that you choose to use or not use.
Right.
You can do just as much damage with somebody by not sharing words of kindness or respect.
Right.
I don't know how many times in my life I've thought, I should tell that person they did a great job, or I should say, and I've held back.
Right.
Because I was uncomfortable. It was a 100% a me issue, right? And that's what sin really is. It's us getting caught up in our own meanness, our own self-interest, our own self-concern. Yeah. And so anytime where we choose to not use our words appropriately is not having control over ourselves. Right. And we deny ourselves and others the truth in the process.
Right. And it's a reality. I think that's the other thing that I want my kids to understand. And that is one of those things where I feel like it's become very known that, you should apologize to your children when you've done something wrong, to teach them what that looks like. But, the acknowledgement that mistakes are absolutely going to take place and that we are human. And that is a reality of our existence. And I know, if you know me and you're listening to this, I know my big feelings in my mouth, and they are not going to, sin is going to get in the way a lot. It just is. I will acknowledge that as part of my lifelong struggle. But my acknowledgement of and recognition, it's that recognizing when I need to share the good with someone and recognizing when I need to own my own bad, right? There's a balance in there somewhere. But, I like this concept of the taming of the tongue is not about don't cuss. I feel like you could easily go down that very rudimentary elementary road and be done, and that's super easy. Oh, well, fine. I didn't use the Lord's name in vain today.
Yeah, right.
Great.
Right.
Check that box. I'm cool.
Yeah.
This is much more complex than that.
It is much more complex than that. And it's so much harder than that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you can be mean and awful and terrifying without ever using the Lord's name in vain.
Right.
Or using a bad word ever, right?
Right. Right.
I was telling somebody the other night, I had to sit a dad down at a baseball game last week. He was out of control. I have all kinds of judgmental words for it. Living vicariously through his son, just being out of way too invested in a little league game. All of those judgmental things that I would like to say. I don't know this guy. I've never met him before. Mm-hmm. But at one point he was yelling and we had a dispute about the score. So I walked over and I was talking to their scorekeeper and we were sort of reconciling books, and he started chirping in to this conversation he was not invited to participate in. Right? Yeah. You were not included. In fact, the coach had walked over and said, let's give him a minute to figure this out. And tried to sit him down. So I think this is probably a problem. Yeah. And I just looked at him and I said, okay, you can stop talking now. And it wasn't mean. Right. And I didn't raise my voice. And there was no cutting edge to it in any way whatsoever. But apparently the message got through because the guy was like, oh. Like, I guess he didn't expect me to, like, I don't know.
Right,
like, he had no processing happen in his brain. And he didn't say anything
And
for
he
the whole
just
rest of the game. He was done. He sat down, and he, like, and I think what that reminds me of is how quickly we lose perspective on how we are appearing to other people in the world. Do you know what I mean? Like, I'm sure if I took a video of him
right,
and the way he was behaving and showed it to him, he would be like, oh, no, that's not, I didn't intend to come across like that.
Right.
And it was ridiculous. And, like,
yeah,
I'm sure he would have been embarrassed.
Right.
I would hope he would be embarrassed by how
right.
he's behaving. And I guess that's what James is getting at here is how quickly it is that this spirals out of control.
Right.
You say one thing, and then it becomes another thing, and then it becomes another thing, and now we're on fire.
And I would argue that, like, not a one of us, it's so funny when he says reached full maturity. Literally no one, right?
Yeah.
Literally no one. But I think back to when John and I met in college, and we were at a football game, University of Georgia football game. People can be jerks at football games. And, you know, we were packed into the student section. Everybody's hot and sweating. And this dude whips out a cigarette and starts smoking. Well, it's a no smoking area.
Yeah.
So there are people like yelling. Nobody's talking directly to this dude.
Right.
People are yelling around. People are like doing all the passive aggressive things. And like and he's getting more and more brazen with it. He's like blowing smoke at people at that point in time. Like it is all escalating quickly. And he's right behind John and I and our little group of friends. And John just very calmly like turns around and he's like, hey man, just there's a lot of us sitting here and it's really hot and the smoke isn't really helping anybody. Can you just put that out and maybe do it later? And the guy's like, yeah, sure. And he puts it out. They shake hands. It's done. Like, and it stuck with me and I had somebody say this to me once too. You know, we all avoid eye contact. Like if there's somebody panhandling on the corner, we don't want to look. And it's like the recognition of the other person's humanity is the very first thing that you have to do. Yeah. Everything else can talk. So it's that stopping the need to say the words before recognizing the mutual humanity between you and the other person. And when you do that, then all of a sudden the words come easier. The respectful words come easier. The recognition allows for the taming of the tongue, maybe a little bit. Maybe that's the bridle that you put on yourself.
That is. Yeah. Yeah, the passive-aggressive thing fascinates me.
We're so good at his humanity. And I feel like we're only getting worse as a society.
I think we are. And I think some of it is...
conflict avoidance.
Conflict avoidance. There's a lot of conflict avoidance. It really is. But not really. It's like this weird space in between. Like I don't want to say anything directly to you because then you might get mad at me.
Right. And then I may have to actually engage in this process.
Yeah. Then I have to actually talk to you.
Right.
Where if I just make comments around you and maybe you'll get it through the ether.
Right. It'll go away.
It'll go away and I won't have to actually deal with finding out maybe that my opinion that I'm wrong.
Yeah.
Or that there's more information that I don't have.
Right.
Or that whatever, I don't know what the reason is, like, because I'm anti-passive, like, I'm probably aggressive too often. So it's never been a thing that's been for me, but really the gift of just being, like, taking 10 seconds and saying, like, if something really does bother you, like, the gift John offered of just turning and looking at him and being like, hey, I know
here's what's happening.
I know.
Right.
I know that you want this.
Right.
But this is how it's affecting everybody else.
Right.
In a calm, reasonable way.
Right. And would you please? And like, it's a respect thing. It was like, I'm not disrespecting you.
Yeah.
But I am also asking for respect in return. And I think maybe that's where I keep going back to. I'm like, wow, James really nailed it on the head of like the tongue, the mouth is the conduit for either all of the goodness or all of the badness within us. Right?
I think that's what he's getting at. Let's read the 7 through 10.
Okay. People can tame people. I've got to get my glasses. People can tame and already have tamed every kind of animal, bird, reptile, and fish. No one can tame the tongue, though. Ain't that the truth? It is a restless evil full of deadly poison. Whew. With it, we both bless the Lord and Father and curse human beings made in God's likeness. If he didn't just nail it on the head. Yeah. Okay, one more verse. Blessing and cursing come from the same mouth. My brothers and sisters, it just shouldn't be this way. Wow. All right, James. Yeah, that's what I was just saying. Look at us thinking the same thing.
This comes into the number one criticism of Christians is hypocrisy.
Yes.
People outside of the church look at Christians and go, well, they're just a bunch of hypocrites. They say one thing with their mouth and they do a completely different thing with their bodies.
Right.
Or they say one thing and then they say the opposite thing.
Right.
And hold both to be true. And I mean, it's really hard to not give that criticism some credence because
absolutely
is that true? And it's been true since the first century.
Right. Since humans were human.
Because James wouldn't be pointing it out if it weren't a problem in the church from the beginning of time. But I do think it's interesting that he takes the time to point out, like, you both say that God is good and that the people God created are bad.
Right.
And how does that work?
Right. And I think there's so much of that right now in a lot of the religious spheres of, the anti-movements, all of the anti-movements of, how do you worship a God and then claim that this child of God isn't worthy of their humanity or whatnot, we want, I feel like maybe it's because it's easy in a way, again, within this hypocrisy sphere, this is my random take on it. It's easy to worship an entity called God that doesn't have a housing that looks like anything that we have experienced before. And when you clothe God in any image that has harmed us or has been told to us that we are bad, aka human beings, it's that it's the whole concept of we've created God in our image. So we can worship a God that we've created for ourselves, but we can't engage with the actual creation of God that looks different and acts different and thinks different. And I don't know. I'm not.
No,
there's a thought in there.
Yeah, but I think it reminds me of one time I had a congregant come up to me and ask me if I talked about grace all the time, would anybody ever change their behavior? Like, what was the relationship between grace and repentance? And I thought that was a really good question. He had grown up in a much more conservative tradition that talked a lot about sin and repentance and forgiveness and all that. And in the mainline tradition, we do talk a lot more about grace. But I don't think that abdicates your responsibilities to your behavior.
Right.
And I think what James is pointing out here is that if we're going to say that we worship God and we're going to bless God and we're going to be thankful to God for all the goodness in our lives and we're going to accept the grace that God offers us and then turn around and not offer the same thing to other people.
Right.
That is in and of itself an evil, sinful act. That what we say should be consistent.
Right.
And that there is responsibility when you've received grace of God and you acknowledge you are forgiven and that you are named and claimed by God. There is a responsibility for how you treat other people in response to that. Right. And I think so often in our brains, we do not connect the words that we say with the actions and behaviors of what we actually do in the rest of our lives. Right.
Yeah.
Like, one of the things I hate is when people are like, well, I'm in church, so I shouldn't say that.
I know!
And I'm like...
Actually,
you should behave the same in church as you do out there.
Say it or don't say it.
The problem is not how you behave in here. The problem is that you're not taking what you think is responsible behavior in church and then translating that out into your life in the world. If you don't think you should say it here, then why don't say it out in the world? Like, the connection that we so often don't make between our behavior in the sanctuary and everything else we do in our lives.
And it's almost like I would be curious to know what James would have to say about social media these days and the concept of, because I think it's a similar idea around, like, since when did we start curating our lives for public viewing versus, and maybe that's the hypocrisy piece that is really insurmountable for a lot of folks who are done or just want nothing to do with the church. It's the when it looks like you are curating an existence rather than living an existence, then I don't have a lot of trust in the authenticity of what I'm seeing or hearing or experiencing from you.
Yeah. It's so often our actions which back up the truth of our words.
Yes.
And when our actions and our words are not the same.
Right.
Or when we say that we worship God and we want to follow Jesus and do the things that Jesus would ask of us, but then we turn around and say hateful, mean, awful things.
Right.
We're missing the point.
Right. And that's where I think the whole concept of we can't talk about the works. The works aren't the thing that saves us. And it's like, you're right. And we as mainline Protestants don't believe in, I believe I'm saying this correctly, but it's not up to us to get saved. Like, it is not our personal doing for the salvation. It is God's doing. I just lost my train of thought. There was something really good coming from all of this. Wow, guys. Can you tell it's
Luther's main
late in the
idea
week?
Was salvation by grace.
Right. Oh, and so it's this idea that why can't the two coexist? That if you really did get down to understanding what grace is at its essence, especially God's grace, then the works are simply an outcropping. They are an automatic form of gratitude. That is where we function from.
Yeah, and Paul talks about that all the time,
right?
In his letters, that salvation happens by God's act,
right?
By if you want to believe that Jesus' death on the cross did it, or whether it was the coming in the cradle and living the life that Jesus lived, there's arguments to be made about how exactly salvation happens. But either way, it's God's action that did it,
right?
And Luther says salvation by grace. Calvin would say salvation is by grace through faith.
Right.
That you have to have that belief. There has to be some structure to it. It's not enough just to be saved by grace.
Right.
You got to do something.
Right.
There's got to be some response. Methodists would say that you got to put that into action. There's got to be some, not works. Works is the wrong word.
Right.
But that you're saved when you start to do the things. All of these are nuances to say God did the work. Right. God saved us.
Right.
But you are responsible.
You're responsible
for how you respond to that act of salvation. Right. And that's what James is saying here is that, for me anyway, that you can't both bless and curse at the same time.
Right. And I think maybe that's where I struggle with that point in time question of salvation. Like, when were you saved? It gives you an out of a moment in time. Like, point in time anything doesn't unless it is backed by it gives you permission to bless and curse at the same time in a lot of ways. To me, it's like, well, I did this one thing this one time and that got me covered.
Yeah.
I don't know. I
had this conversation with somebody one time about baptism. They were an adult believer. They had converted. They had a faith experience, and in response started coming to our church because it's too long of a story to go into, and maybe I'll tell it sometime. But they had an experience of God that was so stark and so convincing that they converted and they started coming to church. And I was like, great, I'm so glad to see you. Are you ready to be baptized? And he kept saying no, why he wasn't ready, because he wasn't ready for the responsibility of what baptism required. Like, he didn't want to change his whole life yet. Huh. And it broke my heart a little bit because it misses the whole point of baptism. And that we're all works in progress, that our baptism is the beginning and not the end of this whole process. And I kept trying to say this to him, but he had the cultural idea of baptism happens, and then after that you're supposed to be a completely changed human being who's perfect and does all the things. And
again, I mean, to me that also is a little bit, and maybe this is wrong of me to think, but it's like it becomes that checkbox mentality that to me lets you off the hook a little too easy still. Like, it's difficult. Yes, I understand that. But But when you're checking a box to say, I've done this thing, I've been this thing, I've been this thing, then you are not required to evaluate yourself constantly, right? You are not required. It externalizes that responsibility rather than in James's space of, you have to constantly pay attention to yourself. You have to always stay aware.
Yeah.
Because you are always going to fall short or fail at something. And that's not the problem. The problem is when you're not consistently paying attention to try to get back to.
It's a lot of work and a lot of effort.
Yeah.
I think it gets easier over time. I think the more that you practice controlling your speech and using it wisely and carefully and thoughtfully and in appropriate times, the easier it gets. It becomes more a part of who you are. And so I don't think it has to be like work forever. But it is work, and it does require self-evaluation. And over time, eventually, like, you can't get complacent. So there is always this sort of level of awareness of, are my words that I'm using, the way that I'm presenting myself to the world, reflecting the truth of who I know God to be. Mm-hmm. And that is a huge hurdle.
It's a lifelong undertaking. And I think about, the arguments around like not wanting to talk about politics in church or not wanting to talk about this thing in church. And it makes me wonder how much like fatigue is in our DNA that we started off behind the 8 ball. Mm-hmm. And does some of that collective generational fatigue over not being particularly self-aware, and then the chips fall in the ways that they do, like you have even more to overcome at this point in time.
I do think there's some generational baggage. I think there is a line to be drawn between allowing politics to overwhelm every conversation that you're in. Yes. I just think politics is too big of a place in our lives. Mm-hmm. We've made it so important. It's the most important marker that we have often. Above even like, family and where you came from and what do you do for a living and all that things. The first thing that we often see of each other is
party affiliation. Yeah.
And it's often the way we define ourselves. Right. And that's what makes politics so hard to talk about. Right. Because it's not just like, well, what do you think we should do about monetary policy?
Right.
Right. We're not talking like...
Right. It's, do you like this person or do you not like this person? Who could be a good, bad, or somewhere in between person?
Yeah. I mean, or, does this person share the same values that I have about war and peace? Right. Right. We can't talk objectively about the ideas and the thoughts and the very real conversations we need to have. Right. Because it's become so part of our identity that if I say something like, well, I disagree with you about school vouchers. Right. Then it's not just that we're talking about school vouchers. Right. We're talking about who you are as a human being. Uh-huh. And that makes it impossible to have this conversation. Right. But the more that we bury it and the more that we put things off limits. Right. And the more that we deny ourselves the conversation. I think this goes back to not using our words when we should. Right. The harder it becomes. Right. And the more distance we have from each other. Yep. And the more that we're likely to say things that are going to hurt people's feelings without even knowing that we're doing it. Because we don't know what it is you think or feel about anything. Because we've been trained to not talk about things. Right. That may cause people to be uncomfortable. And I think like not the flip side, but like the partner to that is, and it struck me as a little bit of a sin. I think the sin of the tongue, the idea that you have to be enraged in order to care about something right now. Yeah. And if you speak about it objectively, or if you say, I would like to educate myself on all of the sides of this so that I can have an informed opinion, that's not in vogue right now. Yeah. You have to be enraged. You have to be angry, or you don't care, or you're with them. Yeah. And that is, to me, a current sin of the tongue that I fall into. I fall into that trap constantly. Yeah.
And that is what I would think in a lot of ways in the conversations that I've had with people, that is what stops a lot of people from engaging in conversation to begin with.
Yeah.
Because again, we're coming in with fatigue. I don't want to fight when I'm already tired.
Yeah.
And the only thing it seems I'm able to do with any of these topics is fight about them.
Yeah.
Because rage is the only acceptable response, one side or the other.
There's so much certainty too baked into our system. I think is some of the other problem is you never hear anybody talk about anything and then they're like, well, I'm not sure.
Right.
Or yeah, this would be the ultimate goal, but I realize what practically can happen is this. Mm-hmm. There's none of that. Everybody is 100% certain about absolutely everything that they say. And
with a dose of hyperbole, you're really stuck.
And this exaggerated hyperbolic language, it seeps into the church. It seeps into all of our conversations about almost everything. Talk about hyperbole. But I really do feel that if we're being honest with each other, the truth is we don't have good answers for any of these things.
Right.
There's always an answer that leaves somebody out.
Yep.
And because we're complicated and messy and it's difficult and, honestly, I don't know how a tank works. Like if you put a tank in the front yard and said, now you must drive this.
Right.
I have no idea. So I have to trust the people who drive tanks for a living to know what they're talking about.
Right.
And it's okay for me to not have an opinion on how a tank should be driven.
Right.
Right. But I don't think that's the permission we've been given in our society. We're required to have opinions about everything.
Right.
We have to be 100% certain about everything.
Right.
And
we have to run in the circles of the people who have the same opinion only.
Right. And all of this is the sin that James talks about here. It's this overconfidence. It's this ability to think that we can. It's a lack of responsibility for the impact of words that we hear, and the lack of recognizing the impact of the information and media and things that we choose to put into our bodies and into our minds and into our souls and how that shapes us, and being just 100% transparent with ourselves.
Right.
That's what we're doing.
So I go back to the bridling of the horses, and it makes me think like, okay, whose bit did you put into your mouth to control you? So we can go back to that imagery, and all of a sudden it makes a lot more sense to me from the standpoint of is it God who's controlling that bridle? Or is it you? Or is it your news outlet? Or is it your friend group? Or is it your, fill in the blank? Who is controlling the way you put things out into the world?
Because it's not about the tongue. It's about words. I think it's not, James is not specifically talking about just what we say as being the only thing you're responsible for. He's talking about the power of words. And if there's anything the Bible talks about from beginning to end, it is the power of words to shape our reality.
Right.
And are we allowing not the right words, but are we evaluating the words that we hear for their allegiance to the truth of the gospel?
It's like I think it's Cherokee. Somebody can tell me that I'm wrong. The story about the grandfather telling the grandson that there are two wolves that live inside of you. One is kind and compassionate. The other is angry and bitter. And the son says, well, how do I know which one is like, I'm butchering this, I'm sorry, but how do I know which one is really me? And he says, it's the one that you feed. And it makes me think like we have this capacity for sin within us. It exists. How are we feeding it or not feeding it? Through what we provide ourselves that helps us maneuver our brains to form the words that we then put out into the world.
Yeah, and he says, both fresh water and salt water don't come from the same spring. My brothers and sisters, can a fig tree produce olives? Can a grapevine produce figs? Of course not. And fresh water doesn't flow from a saltwater spring either. what we feed ourselves impacts how we view and see and speak into the world.
Right. What we produce.
And I found myself, we went camping over the weekend, and we just picked a random park that we'd never been to before. And when we got there, we realized we had one bar of cell phones. So it was not enough to like consume any kind of media at all. I was enough, like, if we had an emergency, we'd be able to call somebody or text somebody, right? We could do that. But there was no, like, any video or anything like that. It was out of the question. Right. And I got back on Monday night, and I turned my iPad on, and I opened YouTube, and I started watching something that I've watched a million times. And I noticed my reaction to how my body reacted to it, and how tense I immediately felt while I was watching it. And I realized that this particular form of news that I was receiving, because I was just going to like check in what's happened in the world today. Right. But this particular way I was taking in the news was not helping me to be the person that I wanted to be in the world. The person who I want to reflect into the world. And there are probably other ways for me to get my news and information that doesn't cause me to be and speak in a way that I don't like.
Right. It's, can a grapevine produce figs? No, absolutely not. Of course not. So if I want to be a more compassionate person, if I want to produce more of a sense of calm for myself and more of a sense of understanding and compassion, then am I going to spend all of my time watching Netflix docuseries about corruption and crime and murder? I probably shouldn't, but I'm gonna. But it's like, I love how stark this, like, he's really, I think it's a little cheeky and I love it. Can a fig tree produce olives? No. Can a grapevine produce figs? No. Can you function in the way that you want to function as a creation of God when what you are giving yourself is nothing associated with God?
Yeah. You know? I mean, I used to listen to hours of ESPN sports radio, which is just basically two dudes yelling at each other, right? Or it was when I was listening to it. It may have changed since then. And then I couldn't figure out what, like, I wanted to argue with. Like, my natural mode of conversation with human beings was to argue with them. Like, because that's what I was hearing all day. Like, they didn't just talk about the football game. Right. It was an argument about the football game. Right. Everything I was consuming was an argument. And at some point, like, we have to be cognizant and aware of how what we're putting into our bodies shapes what comes out of it.
we're so aware of it in kids right now. Like, we are so noticing it in kids. But then there's this study that shows, like, your brain never stops being malleable. Yeah. Your brain continues to be formable and shapeable. And I watched this heartbreaking it was called Adolescence. It was like a 4-part miniseries, and I had to take some time after watching that. And I think the most gut-wrenching part to me is, and I won't do a spoiler alert, but it is about a young man a 13-year-old boy who falls into the world of the incel dark web culture, and it destroys him. And the thing that broke my heart the most about it was the dad. The dad coming to the realization that his kid had found this place that was feeding him destruction and devastation, and they didn't recognize it until it was too late. Yeah. And he saw his child. He still saw his child, but he couldn't save his child from this all-consuming thing that had ended in his child doing an unforgivable act. Yeah. And it makes me think about just how often do we pay attention to what we are feeding ourselves? How often do we let it get to crisis mode before we want to make a change?
Well, there's always part of me that feels guilty about being a prude, like...
Yeah.
Well, everybody else is watching it.
Right.
And...
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm an adult. I can watch things and not...
But it still seeps in.
Yeah. And the way people talk on the things that you watch, and the way the characters act in that movie does start to become part of who you are subconsciously without you realizing it.
And the cliche, misery loves company. I think I've had this conversation with my husband multiple times of, we don't want to be the outsider.
Yeah.
We don't want to be the person who is not a part of something. And for whatever reason, we are all drawn to like the gossip and the complaint and the misery is unifying. It is inclusive. And so it is so easy to stand on the inside with all of that on your tongue and all of that, whatever, because that gives you something to belong to. Standing on your own and saying, no, I'm not going to be a part of this. That's lonely. Yeah. But it's what God asks us to do. Yeah. It wouldn't be lonely if we all tried.
We all did it. Everybody did it.
But
yeah. And I don't think it means we need to be like feel shame or guilt or like or quote unquote sinful to
No.
These things. I don't think that. But I do think we have to be aware of how it's affecting us.
Right.
And whether that's good for us.
Right. And it's kind of like the complain cycle or the whatever cycle. How long have you been engaged in this? And have you noticed it permeate into other spaces? Yeah. Like, it happens for a time. The gossip happens for a time. The whatever happens for a time. But are you paying attention to how often it's happening? And are you living there?
Yeah.
Like, has it all of a sudden, John says to me all the time, like, what's living rent free up there right now? Yep. And that takes work to recognize and change.
Yeah, it's hard.
And sometimes I just don't want to. I don't want to, James. I don't want to.
I think that's the theme of James. I think that's why people push back against James so much.
I don't want
to. He is very good at pretty plainly putting in front of us, like, these are the issues.
Right.
Like, these are the stumbling blocks you're going to have. Maybe we'll walk through James sometime together as a church. But
that could be fun.
I think it does cause us to... James has a way of putting things, I think, that causes us to really reflect on, am I living the way I'm supposed to be living?
Right.
And if I'm going to say these things and proclaim that Jesus is Lord, am I behaving in a way and living my life in a way in the world that other people would know that that's what I say on Sunday mornings? And that's a real challenge for us. Right.
But it's really glorious. In the moments that I recognize myself taking a step back and saying, okay, God, what would you have me do in this moment? And actually listening and really feeling like I'm trying to live into that. It's glorious to know that we can. Yeah. And it feels really right. Yeah. Even when it's hard.
Because you're in sync with God. And anytime that you're in sync with God, it's a really good feeling.
Right.
It really does light us up.
Yeah. And you realize why the difficulty is worth it.
Yeah.
Because the difficulty is just getting in, it's your humanness getting in the way.
Yeah. So next week we are in Matthew chapter 7, which is the end of the Sermon on the Mount.
I was going to say, are we mounting?
Are we mounting? Yes. So we're at the end of the Sermon on the Mount. Okay. This is the chapter where we hear everybody's favorite song. Well, the first commandment, the first part of it is don't judge lest you be judged.
Boo.
And then we'll be talking a little bit about the wise man who builds his house on the rock versus
I can sing that song.
The sand. Yeah. And talking a little bit about the role of wisdom. Being discerning and the difference between judgment and discernment.
And maybe the difference between being smart and being wise.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. Maybe we'll talk about that.
Awesome.
See you next week, Catherine.
Alrighty.
These podcasts will always be free. But if you would like to support our online ministry, you can donate using the link in the bio or at wakeforestpres.org.